And over the last week, I've been tagged in so many people linking me to this headline online that Bryan Cranston, aka Walter White from Breaking Bad, but even more KA, Hal from Malcolm in the Middle, is apparently writing a reboot of Malcolm in the Middle. A bunch of people throughout this week have tagged me in this news. Of course, Malcolm in the Middle, one of my favorite sitcoms of all time. It is genius. You have to watch it. A lot of people, I think, thought it was more of a kid's show at the time, but it's a sitcom like any other sitcom. It's more of a family sitcom, but one of the best sitcoms out there because it was sort of one of the first sitcoms I ever saw. One of the first sitcoms I ever saw that was live action and focused on a dysfunctional middle-class family, because the Malcolm in the Middle title spurs sort of two meanings. Of course, he's essentially the middle child. There's 4 kids, but one of Francis, the oldest kid, goes to military school. So Malcolm is the middle child of the 3 kids that live at the house. And then they're a middle-class family, or probably even a little bit lower middle class. You had shows like The Simpsons, and that was a show about a dysfunctional American family. But Malcolm in the Middle kind of, for me, it was just so relatable as a kid. One, because Frankie Muniz playing Malcolm was the main character, and you tend to, look up to and relate to people who are similar to you. And he was like a white middle-class guy, sort of like me growing up. So I was like, oh, this is so, it was so relatable. I used to fight with my brother all the time. He used to fight with his brother all the time. They had quite a dysfunctional home life. And I'd never seen that in a live action sitcom before. Of course, The Simpsons, but that's very stylized, like the strangling of Bart. I mean, stuff like that's very excessive. But Malcolm in the Middle was just so much more real and kind of sad at points of how these boys were kind of expected to live. They shared beds with each other. They didn't have that much money at all, so they had to budget. Their parents were totally crazy, and it's a really good show. So a lot of people, since every show when it ends, within 5 years, within 3 to 5 years, there's always this thing of oh, they're doing a reunion now. There's going to be a reunion. They're getting all the cast back together. Friends feels like the main one they do it with, and they finally did that Friends reunion special, which wasn't an episode. It was just the cast coming back to the set and talking, and a documentary style kind of thing. And, Seinfeld used to get it a lot, but Larry David and Jerry Seinfeld were just flat out refusing to do it. And then Larry David, in his show, Curb Your Enthusiasm, one of the storylines for season 6 or 7 of the show was that Larry was writing a Seinfeld reunion and they were shooting it. And that was essentially what the Seinfeld reunion sort of was, because all of the original cast were in that and played along with it. Very funny if you like Seinfeld. And yeah, I guess it's that whole nostalgia thing I've talked about on the pod before, where it's oh, what are those characters up to now? What are they doing? What have they been up to? What are they like as adults, or what are they like in their 40s and 50s? That kind of thing. And I totally get that. Rebooting something is really fun. But when it comes to Malcolm in the Middle, one, I would love to see a reunion, especially because a lot of the actors in that show haven't really done much since Malcolm. So it would just be good from that front to see them act alongside each other again. The actor who played Dewey, I don't think I've seen him in anything since Malcolm, same as the actor that played Reese. Obviously, Bryan Cranston's huge, and Frankie Muniz is still a relatively well-known person, but he doesn't really act. But I think it would be cool. And Bryan Cranston is, but the point is, for years they've been saying, yeah, we're going to do it. Eventually, we'd all love to do it. We're going to do it. We're going to do it. And every few years, you start getting headlines like the one everyone's tagged me in this week, where it's Bryan Cranston's writing it, it's happening. But then you kind of read the article, which I don't know if many people who tagged me did, but you read the article and you're just it just says, oh yeah, Bryan Cranston has some ideas and he's writing them, but no one can agree on timing and everything, and it's not. It might happen, and we're talking about it, but we're not sure. I think with something like Malcolm, it seems like the actors are pretty close. They still know each other, vaguely. They still communicate, so it wouldn't be out of I wouldn't be surprised if it did happen. But in the articles, it doesn't confirm that it's happening. It's not a, yes, this is happening. It's just like, yeah, he's got ideas for it and he's writing them, but it doesn't mean it's going to happen and who's going to commission it. And I think like this is really funny because I feel like we are at this point as a society where people now just do read headlines that are designed for clickbait purposes to get you in to see ads. And they just read a headline and you're like, oh, what? And I think most people who tagged me in that article just tagged me. Like, nothing against it. I do it too, but they just saw it and tagged me. But no one actually went in and read that there's literally no plans to do it. No one has actually committed, funded, started production. It hasn't started production. You know, it's all just, and I guarantee you in another year, the same thing will come out because every time Frankie Muniz does because I really like him, I follow him. Every time he does a podcast interview or anything, people say, hey, are you doing a Malcolm in the Middle reunion? Like, and he's like, oh yeah, we're talking about it. Yeah, we've talked about it. We want to do it. And that's all they say. So I guarantee you it could happen, but yeah. But it's also like, sometimes I do think, why do you need that? But then I am a sucker for that nostalgia factor and I definitely watch it. So I suppose in that case, I don't really mind. But yeah, I think it's really, just on a side note with that, I do think people just, it is so crazy and damaging now that people just read headlines and go, oh, that's truth. Like, all you have to do as any media organization is just put a headline out there, share it around socials. People don't even read it. And then you get, like, I guarantee you someone say, oh, I heard they're making a Malcolm in the Middle reunion. It's like, well, no, they're not. You just saw a headline that said that, and it's not that. And obviously it's not a big deal when it's Malcolm in the Middle, but it's like political headlines and any kind of trial or crime or anything whatsoever. All you have to do is put a particular headline out there, and suddenly it just becomes like, it almost just the headline existing becomes the reality or the perceived reality by people, because people don't actually do their own research and critically examine what's going on, and come to their own conclusions. People just see stuff, they see tweets, they see things, and they're like, yeah, okay, that's fact because this publication put it out there. Anyway, it's very stupid. But I would be very excited to see a Malcolm in the Middle reunion come back.